Here he is, Dr. Bryan Ardis.
There he is, Mr. Australia himself. How are you, buddy?
Doing great, man. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. It's great to be joining you. What time is it there?
We've just gone 8 a.m. I'm from the future, so you need not worry about anything that's happening. Everything works out. We win in the end, so I'll give you the game away if that's all right.
So I survived till tomorrow morning. That's great.
Yeah,
Till
that's
8 a.m.
exactly
tomorrow.
right.
We're still good. That's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Love it.
No, we're Saturday morning here, so you'd be what, Friday afternoon? Is that right?
I am Friday afternoon. It's 4 p.m. my time.
Yeah, nice. That's
Yeah.
good. How have you been, mate?
Very busy, brother. How have you been? How's Australia, man? How's life out there in communist Australia? I've heard in
Yeah,
the
that's
last 4
amazing.
years.
Yeah, Australia is wild, hey. Like we've got such a laid back nature. Everyone's kind of like really easygoing, and to see what's happened in the last 4 years is just it's nuts. I'm not sure if you have heard the news about they're not letting Candace Owens in because it will cause discord, is what our whatever the guy's name is that handles everyone coming into the country. So it's like it's mind-boggling because you think like oh shit, man, how are we going to know what Candace thinks and what she says if she doesn't come into the country? Like there's no other means to get any kind of like information or communication. It's like they've never heard of social media or the internet or anything like that. It's fucking wild. I can't believe it.
So I got up on stage a month ago at our big conference that I held here in Dallas called Healing for the Ages. And I get up on stage, and within 5 minutes, I get a text on my phone from an attendee in-house here in Dallas,
Mm.
who is a pilot who's best friends with a commercial pilot for American Airlines who landed in Australia, got to his hotel to log on to our event in Australia in something called Alice Springs, I think it's called.
Yeah, yeah.
And
North Coast.
anyway, lands there, gets to his hotel, logs on to healingfortheages.com, and this warning comes up on the website. And it says, this internet domain and this conference have been deemed a danger to public health in Australia and therefore is banned from access in the country of Australia. And I
Wow.
stood up on stage. I showed the text message. I blurred out his name. And I said, I just want everybody to know here, do you believe that the dandelion root tea, we just demonstrated how to make it home, do you believe that is a danger to public health
Yeah,
for
it's
all
just
people in
nuts.
Australia? Do you think bee pollen we just learned about is a threat to the public health of Australia? Who believes that speaking out has gotten government's attention? That's exactly what I said. Who believes speaking out has gotten the governments of the world's attention? And the
Yeah.
place went crazy. And I was like, oh my God, we've been banned from the whole country. Australia wasn't the only one. The whole country of France banned my conference. I was like, y'all are freaking funny. Good. Let's see if I
Yeah.
can get in there. If Candace Owens can't get in, I wonder if I can get in. We'll see. I've never
Wow.
tried to get in Australia, but I want to go. It's time to go do a tour and hang
Yeah,
out
man.
and educate
Come
and
come
more and
down. We'll hang
inspire.
out. You'll love Australia, but I'll sneak you in somehow. I don't know. We'll get you across on. You might have to travel by boat or something like that. Who knows?
Bring it on. I'm ready, man.
We'll
I'm
smuggle you
ready.
in. That's what they do in America, right? They just bring everyone across the border. But
Yeah, we just put you in container ships, or we have you swim across the canal on the southern border of Texas through a barbed wire fence. Yeah, or a tunnel. Yeah, we can do it.
yeah,
There's
just do
always a
it.
way in. Come on, man. I can do
That's
it.
right.
I'm sure they're smuggling goods and people and trafficking people in and out of Australia somehow. I'm sure
Yeah.
Australia is not aloof from the trafficking of human beings around the world. I'm sure they're not isolated from that, and it never happens there. There's a way they do it. Let's see if they can sneak me in. Come on.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes on. Yeah, like it is wild to think that in recent times, like you can be a transvestite and read children's books to kids, but like you can't stream a conference. So it's just yeah, it's an inverted world that we live in at the moment. It is really wild. I sit back and think, like, do you often wonder like how you came to this point in this moment in time, like for where you were just as little as 4 years ago, where you might have been just going about your day and you just don't think like anything like this would have ever entered the realm of consciousness. And then now here you are, you're speaking around the world, you're writing books, you're talking on podcasts every other week, and it's just like, how the fuck did I
No,
end
it's
up here?
wild. I've actually been booked just in the last 2 days. I've been booked to go to London and speak. Scotland, just got booked in Belgium. And it's been wild to watch what's occurred in my own personal life over the last 4 years, from murdering my father-in-law in a hospital in February 2020. It just made me angry. And then I wanted to see how many people I could protect from my dining room table by hiring a publicist for 4 months. I had no idea where those interviews were going to go, but I did 40 to 50 interviews a week for 4 months. And at the end of 4 months, paying this publicist, just trying to save lives, I couldn't save my own father-in-law. I just told my wife, if I can't save him, I'm going to try to save as many lives as I can from people I don't even know. And then my conscience will feel better. But nobody on earth outside of my practice and patients knew who I was. It wasn't until I unloaded all the truth about Remdesivir, the hospital protocols here in the United States, midazolam and morphine being used in the UK to murder people in nursing homes, that when we started reporting on that, I had no idea where those interviews were going. And I didn't know. I wasn't arm in arm with all the people you would know now. Dr. Zev Zelenko became a dear friend a few months later. Dr. David Martin. I mean, all these people were very close to me in my home, me in their homes. We've been all over the world together. No, I never anticipated that was going to happen.
Mm.
I was actually applauding those people for what they were educating people on, that there were some people like me who were catching on and aware that there was lies and deceit behind the pandemic that had been going on since the 90s and before. So that was very exciting to be a part of that, but I didn't know where they were going. But what happened was Dr. Rainier Fulmick, the international attorney from Germany and California,
Mhm.
he had got a hold of those interviews of mine and asked me to be deposed. And I was the third person his group interviewed. It was David Martin, then me. And I had no idea 3 years ago that that interview would have 100 million views in a week or two.
Wow.
And everybody on earth was going to know who Dr. Ardis was, it felt like. And then everybody wanted him to testify in state capitol buildings. They asked me to testify in the King's Court in Parliament in England. And I was like, oh my God, okay, yes, I'm ready for this.
Yeah.
But everything in my life as an adult, you can see God literally shaped my life in preparation for a medical tyrannical move on the globe, and had literally prepared me in my way of speaking, educating, my personality, my knowledge, my clinical work. I was absolutely confident that what I said to you when I got on a camera, on a mic, there was a better outcome to come if I just kept you at home and fed you nutritionally than if you ever stepped foot in a hospital, got a vaccine from a pharmaceutical drug company. It didn't matter. If you stayed home, I absolutely was going to help protect your life in a much bigger way than you would ever imagine trying to navigate the medical waters. So
Mm.
that's really been my life the whole time. And yes, it's been very humbling to watch the world react to your messaging. So it's been
Yeah.
it's been a wild ride, man.
Yeah.
All I gotta say. It's been
Wow.
exhaustive at times. There's been many days where I felt overwhelmed, crying, alone at home, not knowing how in the world can I help more people around the world. But I'll tell you what, about 2 months after that Rainier Fulmick interview, I had already built out on my website. I'd already built a website in those 4 months.
Wow.
I also had acquired nurse practitioners from Chicago and Dallas to build out advocacy teams through my website for people in hospitals around the world.
Hmm.
But no one else had done that. And man, it was interesting to watch emails. I was a part of email groups all over the world, scientists,
Yeah.
attorneys, doctors, you name it, man. Everybody you know, I was on these. I was the administrator with Peter McCullough on all these things.
Yeah.
And there would be these emails going from Belgium, France, UK, Australia, New Zealand. And I was watching all these people communicating. I'm on there watching these emails. And at one point in the first year of COVID, like October, somebody in Belgium was emailing someone in France. I need an advocate for my loved one who just went into a hospital in Belgium. Who do I turn to? And the
Hmm.
person in France said, go to the Dr. Ardis show. He's got advocacy groups. He's got the documents. You just download them there, take them to the hospital. And I literally remember looking at that email and I looked at my wife in the kitchen and I went like this, wait, am I the only one doing this? These are
Hmm.
people in Europe, like looking for help, and they're directing them to Dr. Ardis's website in
Yeah.
Dallas, Texas. Like, wait a minute. But it's all I could think of to do. I'm just trying to help save lives around the world. And it was just on your own terms. And it's been really awesome to unite with a whole bunch of people who had like-minded efforts of some sort to find ways uniquely to help people around the world. And
Hmm.
it's been a
That's
very,
amazing.
very cool experience.
that story is quite cool, and it's not uncommon anymore to hear things like that. I mean, like your sort of name went to, this trajectory into stardom, basically, in terms of getting exposed, and it's such a polarizing message, and it still is to a large degree. But people have had to seek alternative measures in order to find the truth and to find solutions to their problems. Like it's wild to think that little podcasts like this have been a beacon of light and a source of information to people all around the world, where the people that you should be depending on and should be trusting are the ones that are feeding you the lies and the deception and leading you towards ill health and death, versus greater health and vibrancy and living a life that's abundant. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever that a grassroots show, for example, like this. I live in a little town on the south coast of New South Wales in Australia, and I was
Love you, blokes.
Yeah, that's it. I was on that same email list because I interviewed Peter McCullough, and then he threw me on these email lists, and I'm getting all these bits and pieces, and that's how I connected to most of the people in that industry. And yeah, like Rainer Fulmich was one of my first guests back in late 2021, and it's just been a wild ride. I think that's the only way to really explain it. You can't believe what has evolved in such a short period of time.
Nope. I've even had Hall of Fame NFL football players see me in airports or at conventions and will walk up to me. You're the Remdesivir guy. You saved my father in a hospital. And they start crying. And I'm like, oh my God, the message got out. Like in my head, I can't help it. I know they're trying to censor this information, but people like you and your efforts to create an online platform of any kind has literally helped propel the truth and the warnings and the hope to so many people. So I've always said it's taken a village to get these messages out, and I couldn't have done it on my own. I needed people who had the balls, the bravery, the courage to start their own little platforms. And thank God for the internet. They use the internet, obviously, with social media and other ways to try to control the narrative. But there was a huge amount of people who knew they could go to Best Buy and buy tech and put a little studio in their home or living room and start voicing truth and interviewing people and spreading that truth around the world. And oh my God, it was a awesome thing to watch, actually, how many people got the messages, were sharing those messages. It was very cool. In fact, one of my very first podcasts I decided to do to educate people on Remdesivir, after I'd done 4 months of interviews, lots of people, 1,500 people a week were emailing me. I decided to create a website and put documents that I had attorneys create for vaccine exemptions, advanced medical directives for hospitals that would tell them they're not allowed to do the COVID-19 protocol at any point. Get those documents notarized. They are legal documents. Go give them to the hospital. They can't do this to you without legal repercussions. And that was a massive windfall effort, an amazing thing. It reached millions of people around the world. That was very, very exciting. But my very first episode ever, I recorded my own show in a little studio here in Dallas, and I released it out on, I think it was Rumble or something. Every single video has averaged 2.2 million views in the first 6 months. And I was like, dang, I'm just doing these every single day. And I'm like, this is amazing. So I'm just recording it, sharing it. And then people were sharing it everywhere. And I was like, wow, this is really amazing to watch. Yeah, it's been very cool. Thank God.
It was awesome. Can't get a congregation like that anywhere else in the world by the internet. So that's really good.
Nope. One of their most powerful moves was to isolate all people physically from each other, and we found a way to do it online.
Yeah.
And it was a really powerful movement. It was really exciting.
Yeah, for sure. A bunch of people have sent me your information over the last couple of years, and I got to be honest with you, when it came to the snake venom, I poo-pooed the idea. And
most people did.
I bet. And the only reason,
because I dropped it on you like some big crazy conspiracy right out the gate. Like
the thing is, Bryan, is like I get Facebook memories all the time. So when I started to speak out about it, you just sound like a loony. But I was kind of saying, in our hometown, and I'm sure it's the same everywhere around the world. They said to us that, we're locked down and you can't go anywhere. The virus is deadly and it's going to kill everyone. So stay indoors and keep quiet. But if you want to, you can go to the shops, and if you want to, you can get petrol, and if you want to, you can travel 5 kilometers around the radius of your home. So, like I said, we live on the south coast here. We're down by the beach, and so I would go down with 5,000 other people that were enjoying the sunlight because we couldn't do anything else. My business was dying the death of 1,000 paper cuts because I couldn't open it. But you could go and get a coffee and hang by the water. And so I'd be like doing this selfie going like, how fucking bad is this virus? It's terrible out there. I literally risked my life to tell you how bad it is. And so I was kind of making a joke of it all. But I get the Facebook memories all the time. And one of the things was like, bald men are more susceptible to getting the coronavirus. It was you've mentioned this before. Smokers are less likely. If you're a smoker, you're less likely to get the virus. And it's almost like tall people were more prone to get it. It was so wild with all of the things that were being touted as the reasons why you could or couldn't get it, or what was good and what wasn't. And it was so bamboozling that when someone like you comes along and says there's snake venom, I'm just like, what the fuck? Like, what do you mean there's snake venom? And I've heard, like, there's nothing new under the sun, and I've heard it all now. So now that I've said that, I guess for people that don't know you and haven't been one of the 2.2 million people per video that are watching you, how do you legitimize and validate that there is such thing as a snake venom that is, in the vaccines, or it's put into some sort of filtration system, whatever it is that gets in our bodies and is the cause or part of the cause of this whole shenanigans that's been going on?
Yeah, this is great. I don't know if you'll allow me to. It'll be fun though. I can actually do some screen sharing and show a presentation I did.
You can do whatever you like, man. It's up to you.
So I was invited to go to an event in North Carolina just last week, and I did a PowerPoint presentation. I'll just do a little bit of it here in just a minute, just to help your audiences navigate this really hard pill to swallow, which is when Dr. Ardis came out and said, it's snake venom in the water causing all of your COVID-19 symptoms. You're all just being poisoned. This isn't a respiratory nothing. They're calling COVID-19. That was 3 years ago.
So before you go,
I just want everybody to know I'm going to actually show you something. And when I show it to you, your response should be like the 3,000 people in the audience in North Carolina, with Mayor Giuliani on stage, with Eric Trump on stage, with Roger Stone on stage, General Mike Flynn on stage. They're all watching me do this presentation, and they're all overwhelmed by what I showed them. So beyond that information I'm about to show you, I just want everybody to know, if you really want to know why it is I said this is actually snake venom, not a virus of any kind that you're thinking is a bat that coughed in China and made everybody in Australia sick, except for the 5,000 people on the beach drinking coffee who aren't bald, who aren't tall, right? All the other limitations. This is the book I just wrote called Moving Beyond the COVID-19 Lies. Its subtitle is Restoring Health and Hope for Humanity. And before anybody says, because this is what I said, when people approached me for 4 years ago, and you're going to write a book about all this, I'd go, nope. I don't want to talk about COVID. I don't want to think about COVID. COVID's over. Who wants to talk about that anymore? I've had enough. Okay. Did you know that our United States government published this year, 2024, a document titled Long-Term Side Effects of COVID? And in that document, they published over 200 symptoms and medical diseases they're going to call long COVID that they expect you're going to have, and it's published by the CDC, the NIH, FDA. This document, they state you will have your symptoms for the next 10 to 14 years after COVID. I wrote this book because what you were all told was a bat coughed in China with all these weird, crazy gain of function, maybe lab created symptoms to make it worse. And the truth is, DNA testing was done in China, France, Germany, and Italy during 2020 and 2021. And when they did DNA testing on the blood, urine, and feces of every single COVID-19 positive patient that was sick, DNA evidence in 4 different countries with 4 different scientists groups all confirmed the same thing. There ain't no bat virus, nothing in any of these people. There is actually a combined 36 different animal venom proteins in every single one of their blood, urine, and feces. And every single one of those venoms are synthetically manufactured around the world in bioweapon labs, cosmetic labs, drug manufacturer labs, vaccine manufacturing labs, insecticide manufacturing labs. That's all that's in the COVID-19 patients' bodies. And every single one of those venoms explain 100% of every COVID-19 symptom, long COVID symptom, and vaccine injury. And I put the DNA testing evidence inside the book. And then I show you all the published cures. Well, there is a cure for one of them, of the 36 different man-made poisons they called COVID. One of them was zinc. Did you hear about zinc being effective for COVID? Yep. Zinc handles one of the 36 different venom poisons manufactured by man. Now, what's an example of a venom that's been isolated from a snake and turned into a pill that millions of Australians this morning woke up and swallowed to lower their blood pressure, and they didn't even know they were swallowing dried snake venom? How many Australians are taking ACE inhibitor drugs for blood pressure since 1981? 22 million Americans woke up this morning and opened a little orange prescription bottle and swallowed, before they even got to the bathroom, a pill of dried snake venom called lisinopril. Lisinopril, enalapril, captopril are ACE inhibitor, high blood pressure lowering drugs prescribed by medical doctors all over the world that since 1981 is nothing but dried snake venom from the Jaracus viper in Brazil. But your medical doctors who've prescribed it to you don't even know that until you tell them to go look it up. Well, there's something wrong with this snake venom you're swallowing. Did you know snake venom has been known, if you swallow it in a dry pill form called lisinopril, captopril, enalapril as a prescription? Did you know all snake venom, buddy? Did you know that all of them have been published to cause rapid turbo cancers to form in any tissue in the human body if you swallow snake venom, inject snake venom, or put it on your skin? And they've known that since 1956. Oh, guess who discovered that? The National Cancer Institute paid scientists to figure that out in 1956. And then the National Cancer Institute in the United States gave those two scientists, Dr. Stanley Cohen and Dr. Rita, the Nobel Prize in Medicine for figuring out that venom of any kind in the human body, synthetic or the crude raw venom, will create cancers. And everybody out there, I'm just going to tell you, in Australia, anybody out there who's ever had a loved one who was diagnosed with high blood pressure, put on a high blood pressure drug called an ACE inhibitor, go look at your loved one's medical history, find out which one of those drugs they were put on, what dry snake venom they were swallowing every day to lower their blood pressure. Your loved one most likely died from cancer. You need to go look up what drug they were on, lisinopril, enalapril, captopril, it doesn't matter. Anything that ends with pril is made from snake venom from a snake in Brazil. I mean, go look it up. Look up captopril, lisinopril, made from snake venom. You'll see it. I can't make it up. Wow. I didn't know this till 3 years ago. I was like, oh my God, they've been putting venom in drugs forever. I didn't know. My whole life they've been doing this. I was born in 1976. I had no idea. Anyway, look at your loved one's history. Whatever ACE inhibitor drugs they were put on for high blood pressure will precede whatever cancer diagnosis they had later. Leukemia, multiple myeloma, pancreatic cancer, kidney cancer, liver cancer. It doesn't matter. You're going to see there is a direct correlation in chronological order. You put somebody on a snake venom drug, they're going to develop cancer. So I know they're going to tell you, blame it on genetics. You inherited your genes. You got cancer from that. No, you didn't. If you were on lisinopril for any length of time and then were diagnosed with cancer, you were swallowing dried snake venom. I'm sorry. Your medical doctor didn't know it when your farm rep came in and said, sell our drug. It really works to lower blood pressure. Your medical doctor's not going to go do the research. They're going to trust the drug company and their reps, and they just start prescribing it and it works. And then you're going to end up in an oncologist's office 2 years later, after your cardiologist gave you the snake venom to swallow every day to lower your blood pressure. You're going to develop cancer. I'm really sorry. I didn't know this whole field existed until 3 years ago, when we discovered the DNA testing from scientists in these 4 countries had confirmed everything related to COVID, your loss of taste and smell with COVID is a side effect of all snake venoms. Did you know that? Did you know hearing loss and tinnitus, brain fog, myocarditis? Did you know myocarditis, the first time that word was ever invented was in the 1880s? Do you know what it described? The side effects of a snake bite on the heart.
Wow.
Now, this is important because no one even talked about myocarditis. No cardiologist has even seen a case of myocarditis. I have asked Peter McCullough with me on a plane, on stages, in my house, hey, man, how many cases of myocarditis have you seen in your 35 years as a cardiologist? 0. Great. Thomas E. Levy in Miami, how many cases of myocarditis have you seen in your 45 years career? 0. Interesting. Okay, this is not something very common. Why does everybody know what myocarditis is? The only thing in common is myocarditis is scarring of the heart, death of heart cells that has a 50% death rate in 5 years. I explain to you and show you what is the cure for myocarditis.
No way.
Australians, did you know that during the pandemic, the United States government had scientists during the pandemic investigating how to reverse myocarditis in less than 3 days? And do you know what substance they found cured all myocarditis? Nicotine in 3 days, a very small dose. It even cured the scarring on the heart by day 14 after the 3 days of nicotine alone. So nicotine is a big deal, and I want to explain that to your audiences. Of the 36 different venom proteins found in every COVID-19 patient that created every symptom of COVID and long COVID, they found that nicotine receptors on every cell of the human body is what those poisons are targeting. And in April of 2020, French researchers discovered when they ran DNA testing on the spike proteins of COVID, they were identical to only 2 things: king cobra's venom and a snake in China called the crate snake's venom. And they said this finally answers the question 4 years ago, Adrian. It is Adrian, right? Adrian, yeah. 4 years ago from today, 4 years ago, those research scientists said, we did DNA testing. We know what the actual spike proteins of COVID are. They're identical to 2 snake venoms proteins. And there are labs all around the world that make this stuff. I didn't know this, but they said this finally explains 4 years ago the perplexing question of every medical doctor and hospital administrator around the world. In the first 4 months of COVID, most medical doctors and hospital administrators had no answer for why smokers were not being affected by COVID and flooding into hospitals with respiratory illness. Because before January of 2020, every single hospital was told to close all activities except for acute respiratory illness patients. So close all access to hospitals, empty them all. There's going to be a flood of COVID-19 respiratory symptom patients coming in. And the most of them, they said in January of 2020, would be smokers. That's just what they expected. And then none of the hospitals were full, and none of the smokers were showing up, and none of the smokers were getting sick. And by April of 2020, they figured out that these venom proteins from the king cobra and crate snake that are identical to the spike proteins of COVID, they said they attack nicotine receptors in the human body. And this is why now smokers, we know, aren't getting COVID. And then they said something else in that document 4 years ago. They said this finally explains why medical doctors around the world are reporting that ivermectin is working for most COVID cases. And I'm sure Australia knows about ivermectin. In that paper, they published that ivermectin also binds to nicotine receptors, but not as potently as nicotine does. But this is why ivermectin is protecting people from the spike proteins of COVID from getting sick. Nicotine's protecting the tobacco users. Ivermectin binds to the same receptors as nicotine and tobacco does. So you're seeing that benefit. The majority of the 36 poisons they called COVID are prevented from making you sick and totally reverse all of your symptoms. The number one cure is nicotine for the majority of them. But there are some of those poisons that are not cured with nicotine. That's why I wrote the book. Okay, so here's an example of nicotine receptors being affected by the poisons you heard was a bat virus's cough. Okay. You can believe a bat coughed in China and made the whole world sick, or you can believe that governments and agencies around the world made everybody sick. Okay, they made you sick, and they did it intentionally to create a vaccine agenda and knew they could scare the crap out of you, and you fell for it.
So
Here's
Brian,
an
can I
example of a
interject for a second?
sure.
Is like you've dropped a lot of information in a very short period of time that would, if people aren't exposed to this information, would be in a spin already. But can I just ask, with respect to the virus, I'm of the opinion that everyone raced towards the thing that they were telling everyone to race away from. Does that make sense? Be scared of the virus, run towards the vaccine. The vaccine's going to save you, but the vaccine had the virus. So I feel like I think we're on the same page. There was no real virus at all. It was just a boogeyman that was created to send you away from this scary invisible thing towards this real thing, which is got all the stuff in it that's is making people sick. So when you talk to when you talk to COVID and you talk to the symptoms of COVID and things like that, then prior to the vaccine introduced, because we can talk to vaccine, the repercussions of having the vaccine in your system, but prior to that, can you explain to me why or how you discovered that there's snake venoms or there's things that are in whatever, the air, the waterways, the food that are making us feel sick prior to the vaccine? Because I've experienced those sort of losing your taste and being bedridden for a couple of days and taste and smell and all that stuff is gone. But I had that 10 years ago as well. So that's not anything new to me. If someone has been sick in the past, or as sick as I have been in the past, I just remember being sick for a week. I lost 10 kilos of weight. I lost all sense of smell and taste. That was in like 2010. So that's nothing new to me. So can you maybe shed some light on I guess the premise of all of that? Because we're talking prior to the vaccine, aren't we? In terms of all of these symptoms.
Absolutely. So anything that looked like COVID that you experienced during COVID, but had prior to COVID, that doesn't really make sense to you that they did something now only and didn't do something before. The truth is, when they unleash this on the globe, they've already tested this technology for 75 years.
Wow.
So unless you're older than 75, you probably never had any of these symptoms ever in your whole life, but they have been experimenting with this technology for 75 years. In fact, do you know who created the technology to create these symptoms? It's actually the guy that got the Nobel Prize in medicine in 1986, who was paid by the National Cancer Institute to do the snake venom study in 1956. He created this technology, and that technology is called, this is going to be a whole new topic for your audiences, it's actually called DNA plasmids. And if you don't know what DNA plasmids are, I introduce you to them in the book. You might want to understand what these are, because this is how they create outbreaks that look like viral symptoms. This is how they create viral seasons for 75 years. I'm not joking. I can prove it to you. In fact, you just said, the vaccines have the virus in it. That was just a flippant little statement, which is fine. All of us were told that we're going to get a vaccine that's going to protect you from a virus. And every vaccine we know in our history, even if we're not vaccinologists, we all know that the premise of a vaccine is to inject inside of you either parts of a pathogen, bacteria, virus, fungus, parasite, whatever, inject that little bit of that bug inside of you so your body can produce a defense against that little bit, so that if you're ever presented with a lot of it, your body's prepared to fight and defend and reduce your likelihood of having worse outcomes the next time. That is what a vaccine is. Would it shock you to find out that there is no SARS-CoV-2 virus at all, not even a piece of it, in any of the COVID-19 vaccines? Would it shock you to find out there's not any? It is documented. I show you the actual evidence. Would it shock you to find out there's not even any mRNA in any of the COVID-19 mRNA vaccines?
No way.
And that the NIH and the federal government of the United States has published there's no mRNA in these shots and there's no virus in any of these shots. In fact, they go so far as to say right now on their website, we didn't put any SARS-CoV-2 virus in these shots. That's why we can confidently say in the media, you will not get COVID from our vaccines. You can't. We didn't even put the virus in there, so you can't get it. My question for you would be then, Australian peoples, what then were they vaccinating you against? If it wasn't this virus spreading everywhere but at the coffee stand and beach where you live. Well, if you would like to know what's really in the shots, the NIH actually tells you we didn't put mRNA in there and we didn't put any virus in there, which is weird to me because everybody interviewed medically has been talking about mRNA being the blame for all the traumatic injuries and deaths and miscarriages from these vaccines.
Wow.
Well, if you go look at the NIH's documents from last year, it's still on their website. They actually illustrate and explain to you all the technology in the COVID-19 vaccines. No virus, no mRNA. So why are they called mRNA vaccines? You might want to know. They tell you what they put in there. These shots do not provide mRNA to your body. They put only in it, and they show you DNA plasmids. A little hula hoop is what they describe it as, a hula hoop of genetic material called DNA plasmids. And when you inject that into a human, it will program the cells of the person to make mRNA of some poison or pathogen, virus, bacteria, parasite, whatever.
Wow.
They're telling you it's going to make your body make deadly, toxic, or preventative mRNA particles to prevent a future COVID infection. And there's no way that's going to work. What they're doing is they tell you, we put DNA plasmids in the vaccines, we inject it inside of you, and it tells your body to make mRNA of the spike proteins of COVID. The only problem with that, I'm sorry, Australia, and anybody else watching this, the spike proteins of COVID were identified in 4 countries to be venom proteins isolated from 36 different animal venom sources in this world. And I can tell you exactly what they are. 20
Wow.
different snake venoms, 15 different cone snails in the ocean, most of us have never heard of, and I had to go learn about. And there was even venom of a starfish in every COVID-19 positive patient. These are starfish and cone snails on the ocean floor, made up 16 of the 36 poisons DNA evidence found in every COVID-19 positive patient around the world that created the mysterious COVID-19 symptoms that lingered or were acute. And you asked me, when did this all start for me? How did I get down that hole? Well, this is how it started. In my book, I have a chapter titled The Text Message Heard Around the World. Are you familiar and have you ever interviewed Dr. Richard Bartlett of Texas in the United States?
No.
Have you ever heard of Dr. Richard Bartlett? Have you ever heard that there was a doctor, a medical doctor, who during COVID was saying the cure for COVID-19 respiratory illness is a asthma drug called budesonide? Did you ever hear that?
No.
So Dr. Richard Bartlett's an ER doctor in Texas, West Texas, and he came out on these platforms in May of 2020 going, I'm curing everybody in my ER with this asthma inhaler, a corticosteroid called budesonide. It's 100% safe for all preemie babies to over 100-year-old patients per the FDA for 80 years. So just use this. Nobody has to be afraid of COVID. Then he was blasted in the media for conspiracy and disinformation. And then Oxford in England decided to do 2 COVID-19 studies to prove if Dr. Bartlett was right about budesonide, only to find out it was 100% accurate, 95% survival rate for everybody they gave budesonide to as the acute treatment and kept them out of all hospitals, 95% of all people. So it was as effective as Richard Bartlett proclaimed. Nothing was ever that close, including the drug Remdesivir, otherwise known as Run Death Is Near, I made sure everybody know about. Dr. Richard Bartlett in December of 2021, 2 years into the pandemic, sent me a text, and that's the chapter in here titled The Text Message Heard Around the World. He sends me a text in the middle of COVID. We're on stages all over the place, testifying in Capitol buildings all over the place. This guy sends me a text and it says this: Hey, Dr. Ardis, if you ever, it was out of nowhere. Hey, Dr. Ardis, if you got bit by a rattlesnake, would you go to a hospital and get anti-venom? That was the whole question. Now, I hadn't talked to him in like 3 weeks, and I was like, no world is this random text? My very first initial reaction should be yours. If somebody asked you that, your first initial reaction would be, of course, if I got bit by a rattlesnake, I'd go to a hospital and get anti-venom. You would, I would. And so I was like, wait a minute, what does this guy know about anti-venom or snake bites that I don't know? Okay, I am a retired chiropractor. He knows I don't treat snake bites. That's not a chiropractor's specialty. But in West Texas, where he works in an ER, he has treated many rattlesnake bite victims as a medical doctor and used anti-venom to treat them. But he was now a COVID-19 warrior, respected all over the world. This guy sends me this text out of nowhere. And like you should react like me. What in the world does this have to do with COVID? That's what I thought, because he didn't say anything about COVID. He just said, hey, if you got bit by a rattlesnake, would you go to a hospital and get anti-venom? The answer in my brain immediately was yes. I was so bewildered by the text, I couldn't even respond to him because I knew it was like code. He knew I would go research whatever it was he was asking, and I would find out what it was he was implying. Well, this is what he was implying. I just didn't know, because I don't deal with drugs. I don't prescribe drugs. I don't even like drugs. You don't need drugs. Nature provides the cure. All drugs are made from plants anyway. They just figure out how to synthetically do it. Just go use the plants. They work. So I decided to go like this. All right, Dr. Bartlett, what do you know about anti-venom or snake venom? I don't know. This had nothing to do with COVID, by the way, as an infection. All I did was go look up, what is anti-venom? And the reason why I'd looked that up on Google, what is anti-venom? It's because I've never used it. So I just want to know what it is. I looked it up. I couldn't believe it. I could not believe what I read. I did not know that in hospitals and ER centers all around the world, particularly outside of the United States, the number one go-to for a snake bite victim is anti-venom. But do you know what anti-venom is?
No.
For 90% of all medical professionals treating snake bite victims, it's monoclonal antibodies. Now, if you're in the middle of the pandemic of COVID-19 and you're like me, you would have known a lot about monoclonal antibodies, because in the first 2 years of COVID, it was 100% curing every single person with COVID-19. If they had symptoms of COVID-19, hypoxia, oxygen levels were going down, you go get monoclonal antibodies. 100% of people all got cured very quickly, like in 1 or 2 treatments. So I already knew this about monoclonal antibodies with COVID. This guy sent me this text because I did an interview on Alex Jones with InfoWars, and I had said in the interview, there's a lot of other options I would pick besides monoclonal antibodies, and I gave my reasons. And because I said that, it got sent to Richard Bartlett, these interviews. And they're like, you might want to nudge Dr. Ardis in a different direction about monoclonal antibodies. He's kind of bad-mouthing them. And I had a reason. I had 6 research studies that actually claimed that all monoclonal antibodies treating COVID-19 were extracted from cancer cells in the spleens of pigs. And all I said in the interview was, look, I've got 6 studies on my desk right now, all claiming these come from cancer cells. I don't know what the ramifications are long-term of injecting things from cancer cells into humans, but I can only see bad stuff long-term. We already know ivermectin, zinc, selenium, these other things, and ivermectin are working in budesonide. Why do we need monoclonal antibodies? I think there's safer options. This guy got the interview and was like, oh, no. He had already treated 4,000 people with monoclonal antibodies and cured them 100%. He texts me this text and goes, hey, man, if you got bit by a rattlesnake, would you go get anti-venom at a hospital? Okay, so now I figured out monoclonal antibodies are anti-venom 90% of the time for all snake bites around the world. The only other kind of anti-venom is when they mix more than one antibody, and that's called a polyclonal antibody. But that's not what they were using for COVID. It was mono. Mono means one. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, now I know monoclonal antibodies I would trust if I was in a life-threatening situation with a rattlesnake bite. Follow me? This is what he wanted me to get. You would too, Dr. Ardis. Put your faith and life and trust in anti-venom called monoclonal antibodies. If you were in a life-threatening situation and all of his patients clamoring for monoclonal antibodies were scared to death because of the media that they were going to die from COVID. So they were looking for an emergency cure, just like in a rattlesnake bite scenario for me. That's all he was trying to get across. Adrian, that's not what happened. The very next thought in my brain was not what he expected. My very next thought was this: hold up. If monoclonal antibodies treat snake bite victims around the world, why is it working 100% of the time against COVID, a bat virus? That should be your next logical question. So this is what I did. I went like this. This is December of 2021, the first day of December. I went just like this. I got on Google and I went like this. What was the origin animals of COVID? I thought maybe I missed something and maybe science knew something else. I don't know. Was it really just a bat they talked about in the beginning? Do you mind if I share my screen? I should show you what I discovered.
Yeah, this is great.
Is it?
Yeah,
is this helping you understand how I got there?
Absolutely. Also, while you're pulling up your screen,
I need you to give me screen sharing capability, just so you know. Do you know how to do that?
Do I know?
Yep. Look at the bottom of your screen where it says share.
Yep.
There should be a little arrow up next to the little green button.
Yeah.
Click that, and then at the bottom, it gives you two options to allow me to share my screen.
Multiple participants can share simultaneously, that one?
Click both of those. Yep. Turn both those on for me.
Yep.
And then I can do it.
Has that worked?
Yep, it will work. And watch this. This is going to be very helpful for your audiences, I think, just to help you understand how we got here.
This is mRNA part of it too, Bryan, is like you're throwing Robert Malone under the bus with the whole there's no mRNA in the vaccine, because he's been going on for years about how he's the creator of it. And
yeah, that's very unfortunate, because he is not the creator. And I've actually called him out on stage. I've called him out in documentaries, sitting right next to me in a chair, and demanded him look in the camera and tell everybody why he was lying to him.
Yeah, true.
And he would not answer. And I said, look, I can actually tell you who created this stuff. They just won the Nobel Prize in Medicine, Adrian, in October of last year. I can show you he is not the inventor of this. There's two people at the University of Pennsylvania. They just got the Nobel Prize. And anybody out there who believes he invented it, you got to explain to me how he didn't get the Nobel Prize. He's not even mentioned.
That's true. Good point.
I mean, look it up right now. You can pull it up on the screen and show everybody. Their names are Dr. Cataline Carrico and Dr. Drew Weissman at the University of Pennsylvania in the United States. They've been working on this technology since 1975.
Wow.
And I've known this for 3 years, and I've been telling everybody, stop looking at him. Go look at these two, because you will look into their research and see in their development of these COVID shots what's causing all the blood clots, what's causing all of the deaths and miscarriages. If you look at his research, you won't find it. You've got to go look at theirs. And when you go look, oh my goodness, the whole thing gets answered. I show you their names. I show you their faces. I show you the Nobel Prize they just got in October of 2023. You've all been hoodwinked. I'm very sorry. Yeah. There's someone else who wanted the credit for whatever reason. Even if he did invent it and it was stolen, you better go look at the real people who are being given the credit, because in their documents, it tells you what is causing all of the injuries.
Wow.
Okay. So I want to show you something, because in the beginning of this presentation, I showed North Carolina again, why I started speaking about snake venom. And this is very important in front of everybody. General Flynn, Trump family, all of them are up on stage watching this, and they were all blown away by this presentation. So let me just show you what it is you don't know that you absolutely need to. What year were you born?
78.
78. I was born in 76. This is very important for this few slides I'm about to show, because I think you will be blown away, just like these audiences were. Now, it's the same stuff I've been talking about for 3 years. It's just better to lay out stuff in a way that people can follow and go, oh man, I had no idea. Yeah, I know. Anyway, it was very powerful. I had people in the audiences actually say to me, let me make sure I got the right one here. Yep, there we go. All right, here we go. So I'm going to show this. You can see my screen, I'm assuming.
Yep.
I want to see if I can make this full screen for your audience. Do you see it?
I do.
So I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. I just want to show you a few slides here, because it should shock you all. Okay. I titled it COVID-19, Bird Flu, Ebola, and Marburg Lies. Now, the reason why I produced this book is because they used a technology and had a very real plan for this experiment worldwide called COVID-19. They are going to rinse and repeat that experiment 10 more times per Bill Gates in our lifetime. With pandemics, he has on his website called vaccineswork.com. So there's going to be the bird flu coming next, Ebola, he says, Marburg, Zika, Rift Valley, monkeypox. All this is coming. They're going to use the exact same technology they've been using for bird flu, swine flu, then COVID this last 4 years. You might as well know what they're doing so you don't stay afraid or anxious or fearful that you need a vaccine in the future. Ready? Here we go. Those who can't change their minds can't change anything, said George Bernard Shaw. Now, all of us, including many in your audiences, have been awakened to deceit in medicine unlike anything we thought existed before COVID. There's just a whole bunch of crap we all became very alarmed about, and we had to change and shift our mindsets about, oh man, I guess we weren't free. I guess we can have all our rights taken from us. I guess we can be locked down, be told to have a vaccine passport. Okay, I didn't know I lived in this world. Yep. You better change your mind about what your freedom really is, what your health really is, and what viruses really are. So here we go. Adrian, this is the Wall Street Journal, February of 2020. I want you to focus on the word virus because this front page article is about the word virus. In February 2020, it is written by the author Ben Zimmer. This article, virus, is the spread of a Latin term meaning poison. Now, right off the bat, did you know that the word virus means poison? Because what we were told was this is some replicating natural phenomenon that can infect your cells and infect other people. You can spread it. It's like this biologically active thing. No, it isn't. It's a word that has always meant poison. Now, stay with me because every time in your life, Adrian and Australians, listen to me. Every time you hear the word virus in the media, social media, radio, it doesn't matter, even in relationship to a flu virus vaccine, it doesn't matter, or a monkeypox virus pandemic coming. When you hear the word virus, it is a poison. Second paragraph reads, the English word virus is based on a Latin word for, quote, poisonous secretion. Early on, the word virus often kept to its original meaning of venom. Okay, now stay with me. Adrian, when you read this sentence, the English word virus, early on, it often kept to its original meaning of venom. I need to ask you a question. Pretend you're the listeners. Mm-hmm. What do you believe or what do you think and perceive they mean by early on, it often kept to its original meaning of venom? What does early on sound like to you? Where does your brain go with the phrase early on?
Yeah, the original thought or where the origin of the word virus. Yeah.
Yeah. How long ago do you think it was originated? This word virus in Latin.
Been around for a while.
Would you assume it was before you were born?
For sure.
I read it as this is way back when, 1700s, 1800s, whenever dictionaries were starting to be published. The word virus meant venom back then.
In the beginning.
This is what blew General Mike Flynn and everybody else away. I said, great. I just asked you, when were you born? You said 1978. I was born in 1976. Yeah. And then I showed the audiences this Latin and English dictionary called Castle's, and you can still go pick yours up today. I only showed this one because it's in my possession. I highlight for you the copyrighted date. I'm going to blow it up for the audiences. It was first copyrighted in 1963 and 1987. So by the time this was printed, Adrian, you were 9 years old. I was 11 years old. So in our lifetime, this book was in your library, and it told you in your lifetime what the whole definition of the English word virus, what it means. Would you like me to show you what the definition is of the word virus in yours and my lifetime? Not early on. I'm talking about right now in our life. Mm-hmm. I told everybody in the audience to stand up if you were born before 1987, and 3,000 people stood up. Everybody on stage was older than this. I said, great. This is the definition of the word virus in its totality. Slimy, liquid, slime, poison, especially from snakes, venom. That's what the word virus has meant and has been defined in Latin which is the medical profession's favorite language to hold on to. Everything in medical terminology is in Latin. There's a reason for that, by the way. The rest of the world doesn't learn Latin because it makes them look brilliant, and they're not. They're just repeating you back to you in a certain language. You don't understand the words, and it makes them sound like they're geniuses, and they're not. The word virus has always meant poison, not early on, even in your life and my life. Poison, especially of snake's venom. Then you go on to anything that causes a harsh taste or smell. Okay, does that sound like any definition you've ever heard about viruses in your life or during the pandemic? No. No, but this is in your lifetime. Now, what's the significance of me telling you this? You are now being told the bird flu virus is going to kill 50% of all people in the world, and it's going to be more deadly than COVID. The word virus is a poison, especially of snakes' venom. All right. The reason why I want to tell you that is because in January of 2020, you can see the date, January 24th, CNN in America published this article in the first month of the pandemic. Snakes could be the source of the Wuhan coronavirus outbreak. This is what I found when I typed in, because of Dr. Richard Bartlett, when I typed in, what was the origin animal of COVID? This is when all these documents came up. And I was like, wait a minute, I didn't hear about snakes. All I've ever heard is about bats and a bat coughing in China, or seafood coughing in China. The first sentence of this article reads, snakes, the Chinese crate and the Chinese cobra may be the original source of the newly discovered coronavirus. It went so far that this group published this online article. They called it snake pneumonia. Coronavirus outbreak in China is traced to snakes by genetic analysis. Do you know what genetic analysis is? DNA testing. Now, in a court of law, if you or me had a raped loved one or a murdered loved one, you are going to put all of your hope, all of your faith in justice that DNA testing is going to be able to figure out who the culprit is. Why are we now ignoring DNA testing since January of 2020, coming out of China, where that supposedly originated? It's been confirmed in 4 different countries that snake venom was found in every single COVID-19 positive patient. In fact, it was 20 different snake venoms. This is why they were publishing this stuff. Wow. I came out with Watch the Water, that it's all venom and nicotine's the cure. And then these guys decided to make fun of my claims. Now, I just showed you the definition of the word virus in 1987, no less. COVID-19 is caused by a virus, not snake venom, said Reuters. This is all because of my documentary. Everybody wanted to slam my claims. It was fine. This is all in April of 2020 when this came out. But now that you know the definition of the word virus, Adrian, when you read this title, COVID-19 is caused by a virus, not snake venom. Virus literally means poison from a snake's venom. Like, okay, this is like the most ridiculous oxymoron statement ever. And then this group, Cobra Venom in the water supply, we fact-checked the conspiracy theory. Yeah, that's good. USA Today, fact check. COVID-19 was caused by a virus, not snake venom. I'm sorry. Journalist Brianna J. Frank, the word virus literally means poison from snake venom, and always has meant that. Now, that was in 2022. Now, as you and many others were like poo-pooing that away, which is fine because it's really alarming. I held it to myself for 5 months before I vomited it on the whole world to make sure you knew the truth. This article was published last year in America, May 2023. It is titled, "The SARS-CoV-2 spike protein targets nicotine receptors." But I want to highlight this statement. The SARS-CoV-2's spike proteins contain a nervous system toxin-like region that has sequence similarities to these 3 things: rabies, the spike proteins of COVID, they say, are identical to rabies, HIV's spike proteins, and as well as to snake neurotoxins. That's snake venom neurotoxins, wow, which interact with nicotine receptors in the body. Everything I said a year earlier, they now are admitting. Now, for you, Adrian, and your audience is Australia, before you consider even buying this book and trying to ship it into Australia, which is awesome. I'm so excited about you guys getting this because I have listed every solution to these venoms that they call HIV, rabies, and SARS-CoV-2. And I'm not joking. Stay with me because you're going to be shocked. I know it's a windfall. It's okay. It's a lot of info. But I want to focus on one statement in here. Rabies virus and the HIV glycoproteins, they are similar also to snake venom neurotoxins. I'm now going to take this statement and I'm going to go into the research paper and show you something you've never heard before. Would you like to see it?
Mm-hmm.
They claim in this research study, the rabies virus, HIV, and SARS-CoV-2 spike proteins called glycoproteins, and glyco means sugar proteins. So the spike proteins of SARS-CoV-2, rabies, and HIV all three of them contain a protein sequence similar to alpha bungarotoxin. Do you know what alpha bungarotoxin is, Adrian?
Nope.
Good, I'm about to show you. So all of these three, HIV, rabies, SARS-CoV-2, contain alpha bungarotoxin. Well, it's time to show you what alpha bungarotoxin is, because rabies, it appears, has been around our whole life. HIV has been around since the 80s for 40-something years, all blamed on homosexuality, sleeping with monkeys in Africa, and then spreading that throughout the world to only homosexuals and drug needle sharing people. How does this HIV, rabies, and SARS-CoV-2 all have this thing in it? Let's show you what bungarotoxin is. Bungarotoxin, just go to Wikipedia. Alpha bungarotoxin is one of the bungarotoxins. What is that? Components of the venom of the elapid, which is a snake, called the Taiwanese banded crate snake.
Wow.
This guy is the crate snake. This guy's venom is in HIV, rabies, and SARS-CoV-2. Can you explain to me how it got there? I want to take you back to the statement. Rabies, HIV, and SARS-CoV-2 all contain protein sequences similar to alpha bungarotoxin. This neurotoxin that affects the brain and your nerves in your body, that control breathing, by the way, they seek out. It says this neurotoxin-like region is critical for nicotine interactions with alpha bungarotoxins, as well as with the rabies virus and HIV. Remember the word virus, even when HIV started, they knew the word virus meant poison, especially of snake's venom in 1987. When HIV was circulating around the world, Anthony Fauci telling the whole world this HIV virus is going everywhere. Did you know HIV, what made it so deadly was it had a Asian snake's venom as a part of its makeup? And then I asked the crowd in North Carolina, hey, everybody, do you think the monkeys in Africa that was blamed on spreading through sex with men, HIV, to spread throughout the world, do you think the monkeys had sex with snakes to get that snake venom inside of them in China? They must have went from Africa and went to Taiwan and got bit by a snake, or had sex with that snake to be able to get its venom into people. Okay, this is absurd. This is not how it works. They are literally manufacturing these venoms. Bungarotoxin, by the way, you can buy from 100 different suppliers online right now.
Wow.
All by itself. And I've showed the whole world. Go to gentar.com and you can find it. Now I'm going to skip forward here a little bit. This is a whole presentation here. This is what I want to explain. Did you know that long COVID is cured with nicotine patches, and they proved it last year? Our government did. Is the post-COVID-19 syndrome, long COVID, a severe impairment of nicotine receptors that responds to nicotine administration? In this 2023 paper, they quote why they're going to try nicotine. They said this researcher in 2020 in France identified a toxin-like amino acid sequence of the SARS-CoV-2 spike protein, which shows significant similarities with one of the many snake venom toxins interacting with nicotine receptors, abbreviated NACHRs. And they said, this is why we're going to ask you to do nicotine, because nicotine blocks venom of snakes that bind to nicotine receptors. And this is what they said. And this is for Australia. This is very important for Australia, by the way. The patients were advised to apply a standard nicotine patch. And since every one of these long COVID sufferers for 2 years with symptoms they could not get rid of, including loss of taste and smell, tinnitus, brain fog, insomnia, and others, I'll show you the list here in a minute. Since all of these individuals were nicotine naive and have never tried nicotine in their life, they were instructed to use the lowest available dosage of a 7.5 milligram nicotine patch for 24 hours and to administer that patch once daily for 6 days only. And they had to have their long COVID symptoms for a year and a half minimum. Here is one of those people. If you look at the bottom of the screen, you'll see this individual had chronic fatigue from COVID, loss of smell, loss of taste, memory lapses, concentration difficulties, headache, chest tightness and pain, exercise intolerance. And you'll see the next red bullet down at the bottom is nicotine patch. So when you look at the graph, this is the nicotine patch for 6 days. At the bottom, you'll see arrows for the 6 days in which they wore that nicotine patch. Only 6 days, one nicotine patch. I'm going to highlight one long COVID symptom, memory lapses. Brain fog and dementia is a huge long COVID problem. Our government just published this year, you will struggle with for 10 years if you have this. This is the memory lapses line. Their memory lapse issues that they struggled with for 2 years disappeared completely on the first day of wearing a nicotine patch. And Adrian, they struggled to get their memory back for 2 years. 1 day, it went to zero. All memory returned, all brain function improved. They talk about these people and how they used it. I want to read this to you because if you haven't tried this in Australia, I just heard a rumor that in Australia, they've made nicotine agents by prescription only in Australia or have voted to do this. And there is a reason. This only happened a month ago, by the way, in Australia, I heard. There's a reason why they want to make it hard for you to get nicotine. There's a reason why Australia, the last 4 years, has been going after vape companies. You think it's about keeping your teenagers safe? No, no. They need you to not get access to nicotine. So they're going to try to destroy your access to it. They've already started by supposedly in Australia. I have heard reported to me, they now are requiring nicotine agents to be by prescription. Each of these 4 long COVID cases showed significant alleviation of their persistent symptoms. Improvement was reached either immediately following nicotine patch application or in rapid succession after treatment. It is also worth noting that the course of symptom improvement, it didn't matter how long they had their symptoms for. 6 days of nicotine patch cured all of them. In each case, Australian, pay attention, Australia, please. Signs of exhaustion, such as chronic fatigue, weakness, breathlessness, and exercise intolerance, improved rapidly and across the board with everybody following nicotine exposure at the very latest by day 6. In cases with impairment or loss of the senses of taste and smell, improvement was observed over a longer period with complete restoration of these senses over anywhere from 13 to 16 days. But they only wore the patch for 6. It just kept continuing to heal these people by releasing those venom proteins from snakes. We did not see any development. This is important for Australia and everybody watching this. The authors want you to know this. We did not see any development of nicotine dependence, addiction in the context of nicotine patch therapy. And this is not to be expected by anybody suffering with long COVID. Well, isn't that great? Now look at this. This is 3 years into COVID. This is just last year. Everybody who's touting hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, zinc, selenium, whatever, and you're not seeing improvements yet, read this statement with me in red. The author said using nicotine patches to combat long-haul COVID seems far superior to the time-consuming, often underwhelming or disappointing, costly and complex rehab measures currently available to these patients. And I want to show a video. You want to see it? Your Australian audiences needs to see this because they're going to literally try to keep the antidote from you. This was done by La Quinta Columna, and I will end with this if you would like for the sharing. This is a 3-minute video. I showed this to the audiences this last week in North Carolina, and they were all just dumbfounded. This is La Quinta Columna Research Institute in Spain. You will hear only 2 names in this 3-minute recording, the researcher Rafa Calvin, and then the reference to Dr. Bryan Ardis and his claims for the last 3 years about nicotine. This just came out last month.
In today's world. is looking at dental anesthetic at 100 times magnification. You will see the nanotechnology.
Bryan, is there any chance you can pop your volume up a little bit on your end?
Sure. Yep. Is that better?
Rafa has dried out the sample for 30 days, and then he's looking at the sample under 100 times magnification. You will see hundreds of nanotechnology and microtech. Rafa then mixed 1 gram of tobacco in 5 cc's of distilled water and let it steep. He then puts a small amount of the tobacco in the water mix with a pipette onto a slide on top of the dental anesthetic. You can now see that the nanotech is totally destroyed by the nicotine mixture.
So they're dropping tobacco water.
Dr. Bryan Ardis stated that nicotine was the very thing that could destroy nanotechnology. Rafa has confirmed exactly that.
Watch tobacco destroy and eat all the microchips
everywhere. We are now looking at how we can deliver nicotine in the correct dosage in a liposomal form, just like the liposomal and microsomal that we use on the EDTA, which obviously gets rid of the spike protein shedding and helps in vaccine injury. This is life-changing. So to confirm again, what you're seeing here is nicotine steeped in distilled water being placed on dental anesthetics, and you can literally see the nanotechnology dissolve, be destroyed and dispersed. Obviously, putting this on any platform puts us in danger, as we know, but somebody has to show.
I think it's incredible to watch it just go moving across the slide and dissolving all of them, like it's seeking it out or something. It's wild.
That's incredible.
Don't want to make money out of anybody. We want to give you free solutions. We're not affiliated to tobacco industry or nicotine, but obviously you need nicotine in its purest form. Tobacco and the tobacco industry obviously put harmful substances in that. So you need tobacco at its purest form and nicotine at its purest form. So watch this space on liposomal, on microsomal nicotine.
So that was just confirmed last month, and it was very exciting because I never even talked to them directly. It was great to see that a research group decided to take what I've been talking about and presenting for 3 years about the amazing, well-documented DNA testing confirmed curing potential of nicotine. And so I just want to show something else here. This is the book. Anybody out there interested, do the QR code, go get it. It's at the Dr. Ardis Show, Amazon.com. It's everywhere. But I just want to remind you, the word virus has always, even in your lifetime, meant a poison. This isn't something randomly found in nature. A poison is something, well, venom is found in nature, but how are they getting poisons into you and then calling them viruses? I want to just show you, the reason why I wrote the book is because I wanted to see if I could help save people from being scared again during a pandemic. When I mentioned earlier on vaccineswork.com that Gavi, which is Bill Gates's own organization, they have this on their website right now, the next 10 infectious diseases that could be the next pandemic. They're already telling you what is coming. Number 1 is the Ebola virus. Remember, virus means a poison. Whether or not it's too hard to say out loud, venom, which I find a lot of people have a hard time saying that. It's okay. It is really venom. You just don't know how they're doing it. They're manufacturing it all over the world. All over the world. Marburg virus is number 2. The word virus is still there. It means it's a poison. Lassa fever. It's a viral hemorrhagic illness. This is a virus again. MERS, SARS-CoV-1. It's a coronavirus. The word virus is a poison. SARS-CoV-2. It was a virus. Nipah, cousin of the measles virus. It's another virus. These are all the next coming pandemics. Just know you will be poisoned by governments around the world, and they're going to tell you it came from an animal. No, it didn't. Well, if it did, it came from an animal. They synthetically manufactured more poisons from that animal and circulated. It wasn't a coughing bat. It's not a bird coughing on you, called bird flu. It's not monkeypox coming from a monkey. No. They are literally creating poisons from venomous creatures around the world and telling you this is from nature or from a lab. You can believe the lab part. They are creating this in labs all over the place. Crimean Congo hemorrhagic fever, it is a virus. Look it up. Rift Valley fever, it is a virus. Look it up. Monkeypox, it's a virus. Look it up. Remember, the word virus is not what you've been told it is. You just didn't read your dictionary back in 1987 or in our lifetime. And I want to summarize this for you. The bird flu was just announced as coming. I want to show you how it is anybody on Earth gets the bird flu. It was published in 2008 by CBS News. Any of you worried about the bird flu virus? A human catches bird flu by inhaling the blood, the feathers, or the powdered feces of the bird. So unless you're inhaling blood of birds, inhaling feathers of birds, or poop from birds, you can't get the bird flu, humans. So stop believing the lies you're going to be told coming up. They call the bird flu. This is the bird flu they're talking about in 2008, and they're telling you this is how people get it. How many of you work with birds, inhale the blood of birds, inhale feathers of birds, or the powdered poop of birds? Just so you know, that's the only way they say you can get it. So if you're not doing that, you don't have to be afraid anymore. You don't have to be afraid. You've all been lied to. I'm really sorry. I'm trying my best to make sure I kind of slowly take people through the processes of thought. These were my how could this be questions that I had to go find answers to. And once you find them, it lays out exactly what it is what they call viral outbreaks, what they use to create COVID. I just can't ignore the DNA evidence. To me, it's way more confounding and way more fun to see people rescued from their symptoms using something as simple as nicotine in the majority of all cases of called long COVID patients. And I don't want to give, I guess I could. I'm already flooding y'all with all kinds of information. Did you know Adrian? On my website at thedrardisshow.com, I have a 3-hour presentation is what I'm being asked to go to London in January for, Scotland in February, May in Belgium. When I'm going to all these countries to do these presentations, I'm being asked and being flown around the world to do presentations about nicotine. And the reason why is because of this 3-hour presentation I did in January in Los Angeles. So let me just give you some of the highlights of why it is Australia is now trying to ban nicotine and tobacco by the year 2030. Go look it up. They want to take this product away from all of you in your country. This is what they know about nicotine since 1994. Nicotine can be a cure and a preventative for Parkinson's disease alone. Nicotine alone is a cure and a preventative for Alzheimer's. Nicotine alone is a cure for MS. Nicotine alone can actually cure myocarditis in 3 days. It's published. I show you the research studies. I even included in the book. Nicotine is also a published cure for ulcerative colitis, a digestive disorder. Nicotine is also a published cure for all arthritises. And I have patients all around the world, not even patients, audiences and followers who walk up to me, even in North Carolina, telling me their miraculous ways in which their arthritis in their shoulder, knees, hips, joints have all been cured with a nicotine patch in 2 days. They don't want you to know this because they want you buying prescriptions for arthritis. They don't want you getting over the counter or plants called tobacco plants or vegetables with nicotine to cure you. It's also a published cure for most of the traits of autism. Nicotine patches, by the way, between the shoulder blades in 7 days. It's also, nicotine is a published cure. I can show you the studies. It's in the book. For all the glioblastoma brain tumors you're seeing occurring in young people after the COVID-19 vaccines. They published and conducted in America a study to cure those tumors in 3 days using nicotine alone during the pandemic. And your oncologist isn't going to tell you that's a cure for your glioblastoma. Your loved one's going to die if they got the COVID-19 vaccine and got that brain tumor diagnosis. And your oncologist won't tell you nicotine's a cure. Myocarditis, there's not a cardiologist I know except for Peter McCullough, who's actually published about the nicotine curing long COVID just last year. But he hasn't talked yet about the nicotine curing myocarditis. And you won't find very many cardiologists that will tell you that. But if you buy a second copy of this book and hand it to your favorite doctor, they now will know the truth. And then they will know what other tests and other natural solutions to consider. And I want everybody to know you won't become addicted to the nicotine agents, I promise, no matter how long you use them. And just so you know, nicotine is not only found in tobacco. Adrian, have you ever eaten eggplant, tomatoes, cauliflower, celery, bell peppers, white potatoes, zucchini, or any nightshade vegetable on earth?
Yeah, all the time.
If you have, they're loaded with nicotine, but you haven't been told that. Go look it up, Google vegetables that contain nicotine, and you're all eating them every day of your life. In fact, right now in Medical News Today, there's a whole article titled "From This Year, if you eat the vegetables with high amounts of nicotine, you can prevent or reverse Parkinson's." Go look it up. It's incredible. So you've been lied to. You've been left in the shadows about the incredible nutrient called nicotine. They wanted you to believe it was a drug, and it is not. It is found in every veggie you're eating just about every single week. In fact, every French fry you've dipped in ketchup, both the ketchup from tomatoes and the white potato French fry have loads of nicotine. You just didn't know that. And they don't come with warning labels for some reason. You might want to ask the Australian government, why don't you put a warning about our French fries and potato chips have high amounts of nicotine in them? This could be an addictive substance. Why don't they say that? There's a reason. The reason is many drug companies right now are making synthetic forms of nicotine and are going to sell it to you as drugs for cures for Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, MS, and they don't want you knowing you can do it with just nicotine or with veggies or with the tobacco plant. So this is just some of the things you're going to get. What is something else you might get out of this real quickly? Because I know we've probably gone long. Have you ever heard people getting blood clotting issues from COVID or blood clotting with the COVID-19 vaccines? Regardless if you believe mRNA is in there or not. Doesn't matter. We do know what's in them. I show you in the book from the NIH's website. So many people are experiencing blood clots. Of the 36 different venom poisons they found in every COVID-19 patient, a few of them are called E-carin, confirmed by DNA testing, E-C-A-R-I-N. I show you the studies and I show you the venom and from what snake it comes from that's in every COVID patient with blood clotting. E-carin, and the other one is called textillinin. These two venom proteins are owned. Their patents of isolating them and making a bunch of it synthetically is owned by the Department of Defense in America. These two venom proteins cause rapid blood clotting that cannot be dissolved by prescription drugs called heparin, warfarin, and Coumadin. They publish that. It can't be done. But there is 3 cures to these venom-created blood clots. And if you're not on these 3 things and you're experiencing blood clotting or you're now on those drugs after having COVID, I have published the 3 cures and their doses in the book. Did you know licorice root, since 2006, all governments have known the cure to these blood clots is in licorice root. It's also in cinnamon bark, and it's also in N-acetylcysteine, a supplement you can buy anywhere. These 3 things are published cures, and we're watching people around the world see their blood clotting issues reversed within days of taking these plants. But these are all published. I show you the research, and my goal here, the subtitle of my book is Restoring Health and Hope for Humanity. Why? You've all been lied to. You've either been injured in a hospital, lost a loved one in a hospital, you're still struggling to breathe, you're still struggling to have taste or smell, you're having issues with cancer with everybody you know now after the COVID shots. There's answers to all of them. You're just not going to get them primarily out of the mainstream media or through your medical professional because it's been censored from them. Give them a copy. I give you all the research back evidence. I even show you where to buy the tests medically and where to send them to get them processed. And once they come back, in the book, I lay out for you every single cure that's published for these issues. And those aren't all. Did you know schizophrenia is now a published long COVID side effect?
Wow.
If you would like to know the cure, it's in the book. These are there's just a whole bunch of things that are now called long COVID. They're actually long-term side effects of poisoning. and they're all published long-term side effects of every snake venom on Earth. I also include those studies in the book just for your reference to see the titles. 100% of the long COVID symptoms match up to 100% of all published long-term side effects of venom in humans, unfortunately. But fortunately, some of us have been doing that research to help you, and it's been really humbling to watch so many people around the world, Adrian, see relief of their suffering almost instantaneously or within days of using these solutions we've actually published.
Amazing. All right, I think that's actually a really good place to wrap things up. That's a shitload of information for people to digest.
All right, so this is what we're going to do. If you guys would like little bit sizes of this, let's just do a tour through Australia. I'll take you through little bitty bits, and we'll just educate all of you. Adrian, you can help me set that up. It'll be amazing. I can't wait to join you all in the incredible outback.
Absolutely honored to help you set that up. I'll definitely be a part of that for sure, Bryan. I think you love Australia too. Like we'll get to have a bit of fun here as well, and people would definitely, as long as you're allowed in the country, they'll welcome you with open arms, because we're just not getting much good information out here, particularly from doctors and all that kind of stuff. Obviously, they're still on the train of thought and the bandwagon of just the usual rhetoric. But mate, I really appreciate you. I think in my mind, I'm already thinking if you would allow it sometime in the future, we could definitely do an entire podcast on solutions and remedies and how to integrate this into your life, which I think would be amazing. But for today, look, you've been super generous with your time. I really appreciate and respect all your work. I know it takes a shitload of courage to speak out against something, a tide coming one way and you're sort of going against the current. And I think that takes a lot of balls. But in particular with the work that you're doing, it is, I mean, like you're really putting yourself out there. But I know from my little echo chamber of a community here that a lot more people gravitate towards you than the people that actually shun you and mock you and try and discard the information. So I think you're creating a massive awakening and a huge audience of people that are,
it's been incredible really, actually to watch.
I think it's amazing. So credit to you, mate.
And I do applaud. I have tons of MDs that have actually jumped on board or using these things to help people. It's really exciting to watch. It's just very hard to accept new realities, new truths. When you've accepted a reality for so long, it's very, very hard to go, you know what, maybe I was wrong about this. Maybe I should go look at this and maybe I should open my mind to other possibilities. In this case, you really should. And I will just say, that I love everyone around the world who's taken any time to listen to this. I hope it wasn't too overwhelming. The truth is, you just have been lied to. And the truth is, the lies are going to impact so many of you for years from now. And I don't want that. You do not have to live with these lingering symptoms. In fact, many people now are infertile and had miscarriages during pregnancy when getting COVID-19 shots. I actually show you what the 3 published cures are to the DNA plasmids they put in the shots to create those miscarriages. They actually published it. I have it. There's 3 of them. 1 supplement, 1 infrared sauna degree, I'm not joking, a temperature degree, and then a pH level of your blood that is not hard to reach. And you can do it in a couple days. And then you can actually totally wipe out those plasmids, wipe out the poisons, and restore your health back to being fertile again and carrying a baby to full term. How miraculous would that be? To watch people struggling with that alone, watching them now reclaim and actually extend their families, it would be incredible to watch, man. It would be very humbling. So that's my hope, that we see restored health, restored hope and faith in nature and God's nature he put on the earth. If he created you, he created all the nature. He knew what, if you believe in a God, he believed he knew all things. He knew that men were going to poison you and call it viruses and create vaccine agendas. He already put on the earth everything we need to actually keep this human body healthy and defend it against all the efforts of man to make us sick, poisoned, whatever, or diseased. And that's my goal, is to keep you as healthy and free of symptoms as possible for the rest of your life. It's going to be amazing. God bless you all.
Yeah, mate, you're doing a great job. Thank you so much.
Also, I would like to send you I'll send you a copy, a signed copy of this book. You give me my address, send it to my producer. We'll send you a free copy. You read it, make notes, and then I want to come on a show and I want to hear what you learned that was new to you.
Legend. Thank you so much. That's so kind. You're an absolute champion. Thank you once again. And I look forward to circling back. I can't wait to have another chat with you.
Can't wait, brother. You're the man. Love you guys.
Take care.
Bye.